The orbital station was dying. Fire spread through its metal corridors like a living creature, eating everything in its path. Smoke filled the air so thick that Yuna could barely see her own hands. Her silver-white hair, usually kept neat and short, was now dirty with ash and sticky with blood. The blood was her own. It was violet in color, as all Valari blood was, and it ran down the side of her face from a wound she could no longer feel. Commander Yuna had served the Valari Empire for 15 years. She had won 37 battles. She had never lost. Her name was spoken with respect in every corner of Valari space. Young officers studied her tactics. Enemies feared her arrival. She was considered one of the finest military minds of her generation. None of that mattered now. She lay against a broken wall, her back pressed against twisted metal that was still hot from the explosions. Her left leg was shattered below the knee. She could see the bone through her torn uniform. A plasma burn stretched across her ribs, the flesh blackened and smoking. Every breath felt like swallowing fire. Around her lay the bodies of her soldiers. Good soldiers, loyal soldiers. They had fought beside her for 18 hours without rest. They had held the station against wave after wave of Krath attackers. They had believed in her, trusted her, followed her orders until their last moments. And now they were all dead. The Krath were insectoid creatures, tall and covered in hard shells that worked like natural armor. Their eyes were black and showed no emotion. Their mouths were surrounded by sharp mandibles that clicked when they spoke. They were a warrior species, and they had been at war with the Valari Empire for over a decade. Yuna heard them before she saw them, the clicking of their legs on metal floors, the hissing sounds of their language. They moved through the smoke like ghosts, their dark shapes becoming clearer as they approached. There were at least 20 of them. At their front walked their commander, a massive Krath, with golden markings on his shell that showed his high rank. He carried a curved blade in one hand, still wet with Valari blood. Yuna tried to reach for her weapon, but her arm would not obey. She tried to stand, but her legs screamed with pain and gave out beneath her. She fell back against the wall, helpless, and watched the Krath commander approach. He stopped a few feet away from her and looked down. His black eyes studied her like she was an interesting insect he had found. "Commander Yuna, of the Valari Third Fleet," he said. His voice was like rocks grinding together. "I have heard stories about you. They say you have never been defeated." Yuna said nothing. She would not give him the pleasure of hearing fear in her voice. The stories were wrong. The Krath continued. He made a sound that might have been laughter. "You are defeated now. Your soldiers are dead. Your ship is destroyed. Your station burns around you. And you," he leaned closer, "you will come with us." Yuna knew what that meant. Among the Krath, defeated commanders were not killed. That would be too merciful. Instead, they were taken as war slaves. They were kept alive as trophies, proof of Krath victory. They were humiliated, broken, used as servants until they forgot who they had once been. For a Valari of noble blood, it was a fate worse than death. "Kill me," Yuna said. Her voice was weak but steady. "I would rather die." "I know," the Krath commander replied. "That is why you will live." He reached down to grab her, and Yuna closed her eyes. She had no strength left to fight. No weapons. No soldiers. No hope. This was how it would end, not in glorious battle, but in shame and captivity. Then she heard a sound that did not belong. An explosion, but different from the others. Closer. Sharper. The wall behind the Krath soldiers burst inward, and through the smoke came something Yuna did not expect, a human dropship. It crashed through the station's hull like a fist through paper, its engines screaming as it slowed to a stop. The ramp dropped before it had even fully landed, and out poured soldiers in gray armor marked with a blue planet symbol. Terran Marines, humans. Yuna did not understand. The humans were neutral in this war. They had signed no treaties with the Valari or the Krath. They had no reason to be here. No stake in this battle. No cause to interfere. Yet here they were. The Krath soldiers spun around, raising their weapons, but they did not fire. Starting a fight with humans could mean starting a war with Earth, and even the Krath were not foolish enough to want that. At the front of the human squad stood a man of average height with black hair cut short and calm, dark eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. He wore the same gray armor as his soldiers, but his movements marked him as their leader. He walked forward without hurry, without fear, and stopped directly between Yuna and the Krath commander, Lieutenant Teho of the United Earth Coalition. The Krath commander's mandibles clicked with anger. "Human, you have no place here. This is Krath business." Teho did not reply immediately. Instead, he looked back at Yuna. His eyes moved over her wounds, her broken leg, the blood on her face. Something passed through his expression. It was not pity. It was something harder to name. Then he turned back to the Krath. "I disagree," he said simply. "This Valari is my prize." The Krath commander growled. "She fell to our forces. By the laws of Dominion. By the codes of the Galactic Compact that your own species signed. She belongs to me. I claimed this victory. I will claim this commander." "She fell to your forces," Teho agreed. "But you haven't claimed her yet." "What?" Teho took another step forward. He was close enough now that the Krath commander could have killed him with one swing of his blade, but the human did not seem afraid. "I know your laws," Teho said. "The laws of Dominion." Section 7. The right of shielding. Any warrior may claim a defeated enemy if they stand as their shield before the killing blow is struck, or before the original claimer takes possession. The Krath commander went very still. "You would not dare." Teho's voice was quiet but firm. "I'm standing between you and her right now. I'm her shield. By your own laws. The ones your empire wrote. The ones you forced into the Galactic Compact." He paused. "She's mine now." Yuna heard the words, but they did not make sense. This human, this stranger, was claiming her? Using Krath law against the Krath? Risking a diplomatic incident, maybe even a war, for a Valari he had never met? She stared at his back as he stood before her, placing himself between her broken body and the enemy who wanted to take her. No one had ever stood for her like this. Not once in her entire life. The silence that followed Teho's words was thick enough to cut. The burning station crackled and groaned around them, but no one moved. The Krath soldiers stood frozen, their weapons half raised, looking to their commander for direction. The human Marines held their positions, calm and ready, and in the middle of it all, two leaders faced each other. The Krath commander's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme anger among his species. His black eyes fixed on Teho with pure hatred. This human had done something unthinkable. He had used Krath law, sacred law written by their ancestors, against them. And the worst part was that he was right. "You dare," the Krath commander hissed. "You dare invoke the right of shielding? You, a human? Your species is barely a century old in galactic affairs. You have no right to speak our laws." Teho did not move. "The laws are in the Galactic Compact. Every species that signed the compact has the right to invoke them. Earth signed the compact 32 years ago. This is a trick, a manipulation. It's your own law. I'm just using it." The Krath commander took a step forward. He was much larger than Teho, towering over the human by at least 2 feet. His blade caught the flickering light of nearby fires. "I could kill you where you stand. My blade would be through your heart before your soldiers could raise their weapons." "You could try," Teho agreed. "But then you'd have a war with Earth, on top of your war with the Valari. And from what I hear, you're not winning that one." More clicking. More rage. But the Krath commander did not attack. Teho had read him correctly. The Krath could not afford another enemy. Especially not humanity. Human ships were fewer in number than Krath ships, but their technology was strange and unpredictable. No one quite knew what humans were capable of. And that uncertainty was a weapon in itself. "This will not be forgotten," the Krath commander said finally. "Your government will hear of this. There will be consequences. I'm sure there will be. And the Valari, The commander looked past Taeho to where Yuna lay. She is disgraced now. Claimed by a human. Her own people will see her as tainted. You have not saved her. You have only changed the nature of her prison. Taeho's expression did not change. That's for her to decide, not you. For a long moment, the Krath commander held his ground. Then, with a harsh clicking sound that might have been a curse, he turned and gestured to his soldiers. They withdrew slowly, backing toward the holes in the station walls where their own ships waited. The commander was the last to leave. He paused at the edge of the breach and looked back. We will meet again, human. And next time, there will be no laws to protect you. Then he was gone, and the Krath ships pulled away from the dying station. Taeho let out a slow breath. He turned to his soldiers. Secure the area. Check for survivors. And someone get a medic over here. Only then did he turn to look at Yuna. She stared up at him with a mixture of confusion, pain, and something that might have been anger. Her violet eyes were bright despite her wounds. She was still a commander. Still a warrior. Even broken on the ground. Why? She asked. Her voice was barely a whisper. Taeho crouched down beside her, careful not to touch her wounds. Let's get you to our ship first. Questions later. No. She grabbed his arm with surprising strength. Why? Why would you do this? You don't know me. You have nothing to gain. Your species has no part in this war. Taeho was quiet for a moment. Behind him, his soldiers moved through the wreckage, checking bodies, calling out reports. A medic approached with a stretcher. I was monitoring Krath communications, Taeho said finally. I heard what they plan to do with you. What they do with all captured commanders. He met her eyes. I wasn't going to let that happen, but the right of shielding. You claimed me. Do you understand what that means? Among my people. Among the Krath. Among every species in the known galaxy. A claim is ownership. I am yours now. Your property. Your slave. No. The word was simple and absolute. Yuna blinked. What? That's not what the right means to humans. We didn't write that law, but we interpret it differently. Taeho stood as the medic arrived with the stretcher. To us, a claim is responsibility, not ownership. It means I'm responsible for your safety until you can stand on your own again. It means I protect you, provide for you, help you heal, and when you're ready, when you're strong enough, you walk away free. That's it. Quote, Yuna did not understand. The concept was so foreign to her that she could not process it. Among the Valari, the strong commanded the weak. That was the natural order. Protection without expectation of service in return? Freedom given without being earned? It made no sense. You're lying, she said, but there was no conviction in her voice. I'm not. But you don't have to believe me yet. Taeho nodded to the medic, who began carefully lifting Yuna onto the stretcher. You'll see for yourself. The next hours were a blur of pain and movement. Yuna was carried through the ruined station to the human dropship. She saw glimpses of her dead soldiers as she passed, their faces frozen in their final moments. She wanted to stop, to honor them, but she had no strength left. The dropship took off just as the station's core finally gave out. Through a small window, Yuna watched the place where she had fought her last battle explode into a ball of fire and twisted metal. Everything she had been, everything she had built, disappeared in that explosion. She closed her eyes and let unconsciousness take her. When she woke again, she was in a human medical bay. The room was clean and bright, filled with equipment she did not recognize. A soft beeping sound tracked her heartbeat. Her wounds had been bandaged, her legs set in some kind of supportive frame. She was alive. The door opened, and a human woman walked in. She had dark hair pulled back in a practical style and kind eyes that crinkled when she smiled. You're awake, the woman said. Good. I'm Dr. Jiwon. I've been taking care of you. Yuna tried to speak, but her throat was dry. Jiwon handed her a cup of water. Small sips. You've been unconscious for 2 days. Your body needs time to recover. 2 days. Yuna drank the water slowly, letting it soothe her throat. Where am I? You're on the Endurance. It's a Terran frigate. We're currently in neutral space, heading toward the Kovani system. Jiwon checked a display beside the bed. Your vital signs are stable, but you had significant injuries. That leg is going to need at least another week before you can put weight on it. The Krath. Gone. They filed a formal protest with the Galactic Compact, but the lieutenant's claim was legal. They can't touch you. Jiwon paused. You're safe here, Commander. Safe. Yuna tested the word in her mind. It felt strange. She had not felt safe in a very long time. The lieutenant, she said. Taeho, I need to speak with him. He comes by every evening to check on you. I'm sure he'll visit again tonight. Jiwon smiled gently. For now, rest. You've been through a lot. She left, and Yuna was alone with her thoughts. She had been defeated, claimed, saved by a stranger. And now she lay in an enemy ship. No, not an enemy. Humans were neutral in a strange bed, surrounded by a species she knew almost nothing about. Everything she had believed about the galaxy, about power, about strength and weakness, had been turned upside down in a single moment. And it had all started with a human who refused to let her fall into darkness. Evening came aboard the Endurance. Though in space there was no true day or night, the ship simply dimmed its lights at certain hours to help its crew maintain a natural rhythm. Yuna lay in her medical bed, watching shadows grow longer across the walls, waiting. When the door finally opened, she was ready. Taeho walked in carrying a small tray with food on it. He wore simple clothes now, not his armor, and he looked tired. He had probably been working all day, dealing with the aftermath of what he had done. Saving her had created problems for him. Yuna knew that much. She just didn't know how many. You're awake, he said, setting the tray on a table beside her bed. Jiwon said, You woke up earlier. How do you feel? Angry, Yuna replied immediately. Taeho paused, then nodded slowly. That's fair. You had no right. She pushed herself up in the bed, ignoring the pain that shot through her ribs. I did not ask for your help. I did not ask to be claimed. I would rather have died with honor than live as someone's property. Taeho pulled a chair closer to the bed and sat down. He did not seem surprised by her words. And he did not seem offended. He just listened. I told you before, he said when she finished. You're not property. That's not what the Rite means to humans, so you say. But I have only your word for that. And I don't know you. I don't know your species. I don't know if your words are truth or pretty lies meant to keep me calm until you decide what to do with me. What would you have me do to prove it? Yuna had not expected the question. She fell silent for a moment, thinking, Let me go. Right now. Give me a ship and let me leave. I can't do that. You see? You claim I'm not property, but you won't release me. Your words and actions do not match. Taeho leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. I can't let you go right now because you're injured. You can barely stand. Your leg is broken. You have second-degree plasma burns. And you've lost a lot of blood. If I put you in a ship right now, you'd die before you reached the nearest station. That would be my choice. Maybe. But I made myself responsible for your safety. That means I can't just watch you kill yourself. He paused. When you're healed, when you can walk and fight and take care of yourself again, I'll give you a ship, or take you wherever you want to go. Your choice. But not until you're ready. Yuna stared at him. She was looking for the lie, the deception, the hidden motive that had to be there. Every species she knew operated on power and self-interest. The Valari served those above them to gain favor. The Krath conquered and enslaved to prove their strength. Even the peaceful Narani traded favors like currency, always calculating, always keeping score. But she could not find the deception in Taeho's face. Either he was the best liar she had ever met, or he was telling the truth. Why? She asked again. It was the same question she had asked on the station, and she still did not understand the answer. Why would you risk so much for a stranger? Your government will be angry. The Krath will seek revenge. You may have started a diplomatic crisis that could last for years. And for what? For one Valari commander you never met before? Tejo was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than before. My grandmother raised me, he said. She was a soldier. Like me. Fought in the Mars uprising when I was young. She told me stories about war. About the things she saw and did. Some of those stories were hard to hear. He looked at the wall, his eyes distant. One day I asked her what the point of fighting was. If war was so terrible, why did anyone do it? And she said something I never forgot. She said that war makes monsters of everyone. Eventually, the only way to stay human is to draw a line somewhere, to decide that there are some things you will not do, some cruelties you will not allow, no matter what. He looked back at Yuna. I watched the Krath close in on you. I heard what they planned to do. And I thought about my grandmother's words. I thought about the line, and I decided that if I walked away, if I let that happen when I could have stopped it, I would cross that line. So you saved me to save yourself. Yuna said slowly. To preserve your own sense of honor. Maybe. Does that make it wrong? She did not have an answer. Tejo stood up and pushed the food tray closer to her. You should eat. Human food might taste strange to you. But G1 says your biology can process it. You need to regain your strength. He walked to the door, then stopped. For what it's worth, he said without turning around. I'm sorry you're in this situation. I know it's not what you wanted. But I'm not sorry for what I did. Given the same choice, I'd do it again. He left, and Yuna was alone with the silence and the smell of unfamiliar food. She wanted to hate him. It would be easier to hate him. To see him as just another captor. Another enemy. Another being who wanted to use her for his own purposes, but hatred required certainty. And she had none. She reached for the food tray and looked at its contents. Some kind of grain with vegetables and pieces of meat. It smelled strange but not unpleasant. Her stomach was empty, and her body needed fuel to heal. She ate. The next few days passed slowly. Jiwan came several times each day to check her wounds, change her bandages, and adjust her medications. The human doctor was patient and gentle, explaining everything she did before she did it. She did not treat Yuna like a prisoner or a trophy. She treated her like a patient. Other humans came too. An engineer named Dowan stopped by to repair a broken monitor in her room and ended up talking for an hour about his work. He was loud and enthusiastic, using his hands to draw pictures in the air as he described the ship's systems. He seemed genuinely excited to have someone new to talk to, even if that someone was a wounded Valari who barely responded. A young soldier named Minjae brought her books, translated into her language through some clever software. He said reading might help pass the time. He seemed shy, almost nervous around her, but kind. And every evening, Tejo came. They did not always talk. Sometimes he just sat with her while she ate, answering questions if she asked them, remaining silent if she did not. He never demanded anything from her. He never reminded her of the debt she owed. He simply sat, and waited, and left, when she grew tired. It was unlike anything Yuna had ever experienced. Among the Valari, every action had meaning. Every gesture signified power or weakness, dominance or submission. To sit quietly with someone, expecting nothing, taking nothing, would be seen as strange at best, suspicious at worst. But Tejo did it every night. On the fifth evening, Yuna finally asked the question that had been growing in her mind. Are all humans like you? Tejo considered the question. No. We're as different from each other as any species. We have our share of cruelty and selfishness. Our history is full of wars and suffering, much of it caused by ourselves. Then why are you like this? He smiled slightly. I try to be better than our history. That's all any of us can do. Yuna looked at him for a long time. I don't understand your people, she said finally. That's okay, Tejo replied. We've got time. For the first time since her defeat, Yuna felt something other than anger and shame. She felt curiosity. She wanted to understand these strange humans, who saved enemies and expected nothing in return. And somewhere deep inside, in a place she did not yet want to acknowledge, she felt something that might have been hope. Jiwan stood beside her, one hand ready to catch her if she fell. The medical frame around her leg had been replaced with a lighter support that allowed movement. It was still painful, but Yuna was no stranger to pain. She pushed through it. One step, then another, then another. Slowly, Jiwan said. There's no rush. But there was a rush, at least in Yuna's mind. Every day she spent lying in that bed was another day she felt weak. And Yuna had spent her entire life being strong. She did not know how to be anything else. She made it across the small room and back before her leg gave out. Jiwan helped her sit on the edge of the bed. That was good, the doctor said. Better than I expected, actually. Your Valari healing is faster than human healing. Another week, and you should be walking normally. Lardy bod, the doctor said from 15 line. Where would be on Russ. And with some that. Where would be a 9. And we have along to would be a 9. With that, another week. Yuna looked at her hands. They were still thin and weak from her time in bed. What happens after that? Jiwan shrugged. That's between you and the lieutenant. But if you're asking what I think will happen, I think you'll be free to go wherever you want. You believe that? I know it. Jiwan began packing up her medical equipment. Taeho isn't the type to go back on his word. None of us would follow him if he was. Yuna had noticed that about the Endurance's crew. They respected Taeho not out of fear, but out of genuine admiration. When he spoke, they listened. When he asked for something, they did it willingly. It was different from Valari command structure, where orders were obeyed because refusing meant punishment. Here, orders were obeyed because the crew believed in their leader. It was strange, and somehow, it worked. After Ji-won left, Yuna forced herself to walk again. Back and forth across the room, over and over, until her leg throbbed with pain and sweat covered her face. She would not be weak, she would not be helpless. Whatever happened next, she would face it on her feet. That evening, Taeho arrived as usual. But instead of sitting in the chair, he stood by the door. Feel like taking a walk? He asked. Yuna looked at him with surprise. Outside this room? The doctor said you're ready for short walks, and I thought you might be getting tired of staring at these walls. She was. She was desperately tired of them. But she hesitated. Walking through the human ship, seeing its crew, being seen by them, that felt like something more, like stepping into their world. Unless you'd rather stay here, Taeho added. That's okay too. No. Yuna pushed herself up. I'll come. They walked slowly through the corridors of the Endurance. The ship was smaller than Valari warships, but cleaner and more efficient. Everything had a purpose. Nothing was wasted. The humans they passed nodded respectfully to Taeho and looked at Yuna with curiosity, but not hostility. They don't seem afraid of me, Yuna observed. Why would they be? I'm Valari. Your species has heard stories about us. We're supposed to be cold, arrogant, dangerous. Taeho smiled slightly. They can see you're injured and recovering. They're more likely to feel protective than afraid. Protective? Of an outsider? You're not an outsider. You're on our ship. That makes you one of us, at least for now. They reached a wide window that looked out into space. Stars stretched endlessly in every direction, beautiful and cold. Yuna stopped and stared at them. Somewhere out there was Valari space. Her home. Her empire. But it felt very far away. Tell me about Earth, she said suddenly. Taeho joined her at the window. What do you want to know? Everything. Anything. I know almost nothing about your world. Just what I learned in military briefings. And those were focused on your weapons and ship designs. Taeho thought for a moment. Earth is a small planet, by galactic standards. Blue and green, mostly. We have one moon, which humans have walked on. We have oceans that cover most of the surface, and land that's divided into continents. He paused. We're a young species, We only discovered we weren't alone in the universe about 100 years ago. Before that, we spent most of our history fighting each other. And now we're united. Mostly. We have one government for Earth and our colonies. Though it's complicated. We argue a lot. But when something threatens us from outside, we come together. Yuna nodded slowly. The Valari were like that once. Many kingdoms, many wars. Then the Empire rose and conquered everyone. Now there is peace. But it is the peace of submission. That's one way to do it. It's the only way my people know. They stood in silence for a while, watching the stars. Can I ask you something? Tejo said eventually. Yes. What was it like? Being a commander, I mean. You were famous. They say you never lost a battle until I did. Yuna's voice was flat. It was everything. My entire identity was built around being a warrior. I was taken from my family as a child to be trained. I never knew any other life. Victory was all that mattered. And when the victories came, I thought I had earned my place in the universe. And now? Now I have nothing. My soldiers are dead. My ship is destroyed. My reputation is gone. When the Valari Empire learns what happened, they will see me as disgraced. A commander who was defeated, who was claimed by an outsider. She laughed bitterly. The Krath commander was right. You did not save me. You just changed the nature of my prison. I don't believe that. Yuna turned to look at him. Why not? Because prisons are made of bars and chains. What you're describing is something else. It's loss, and grief, and having to rebuild who you are. That's hard. Maybe the hardest thing there is. But it's not prison. It's just life. You speak as if you know. Tejo's eyes grew distant. I lost people too. In a battle years ago. Friends I had served with since I was young. For a long time after, I felt like you described. Empty, like my identity had been taken away. I didn't know who I was without them. What changed? Time. And realizing that I could honor their memory by living. Not by dying. By being someone they would have been proud to know. Yuna turned back to the stars. His words echoed in her mind. She thought of her soldiers. The ones who had died defending the station. They had believed in her. They had followed her to their deaths. What would they want for her now? Not despair. Not shame. They would want her to live, to fight, to find a new purpose. It's not easy, she said quietly. No, Tejo agreed. It's not. They began walking again, slower now, making their way back toward the medical bay. Along the way, they passed the ship's common area. Several crew members were gathered there, eating and talking. One of them was playing some kind of stringed instrument while others listened. It was such a simple scene. Just people enjoying each other's company. But to Yuna, it felt almost magical. Valari ships were strictly disciplined. Crew members did not gather casually. They did not play music for pleasure. Every moment was structured, controlled, measured. But here, humans laughed and talked and lived. Is it always like this? Yuna asked. Tejo followed her gaze. When we can manage it, yes. We work hard. But we also rest. We fight when we must. But we also create. We believe life should be more than just survival. More than survival. Yuna repeated softly. I'm not sure I know what that means. You could learn, Tejo said. If you want to. Yuna didn't answer. But as they continued walking, she found herself watching the humans with new eyes. They were not the cold, calculating species her military briefings had described. They were warm, complicated, capable of both violence and great kindness. And somehow, despite everything, she wanted to understand them better. News traveled fast through the galaxy. Faster than ships, faster than light. And the news of what Tejo had done spread like fire through dry grass. A human, a neutral human, had invoked the ancient rite of shielding to save a Valari commander from Krath enslavement. The diplomatic channels exploded. Messages flew between governments. Emergency sessions were called in the Galactic Compact's headquarters, and everyone had an opinion. The Krath Empire was furious. Their ambassador, a massive insectoid named Vreen, demanded that the human be punished. He stood before the Compact Tribunal, his mandibles clicking with barely controlled rage, and declared that Teho's actions were an act of war. This human interfered in a lawful military operation, Vreen proclaimed. He stole our rightful prize. He made a mockery of our traditions. The Krath Empire demands justice. The Valari Empire was caught in an awkward position. On one hand, a human had saved one of their commanders from a terrible fate. On the other hand, that same commander had been claimed, which was deeply humiliating. The Valari ambassador, a tall woman named Soren, spoke carefully. The Empire acknowledges that Commander Yuna was defeated in battle. Her status is complicated. We neither thank the human nor condemn him. We simply observe. The other species watched with interest. The Narani, the Health, the Myriad Collective, and a dozen others, all had opinions. Most of them saw this as a minor curiosity, a strange footnote in the ongoing Krath-Valari War. But some saw it differently. Some saw it as a sign of something new. And then there were the humans. The United Earth Coalition was not pleased. Teho had acted without orders, without permission, without consulting anyone. He had potentially created a diplomatic crisis with the Krath Empire. The coalition's leaders ordered him to appear before a formal inquiry, but they did something else too. They sent a message to the Galactic Compact stating that Teho's invocation of the Rite of Shielding was legally valid. If the Krath wanted to dispute it, they would have to take it to court. The Krath, after much internal debate, decided not to pursue legal action. They knew they would lose. The law was clear. Teho had acted within its bounds, even if his actions were unprecedented. But they made it clear that this was not over. The Krath had long memories, and they would not forget this insult. Teho received word of all this aboard the Endurance. He read the messages in his quarters. Alone, feeling the weight of what he had done settle on his shoulders. He had followed his conscience, but conscience had a price, and he was only beginning to understand what that price might be. There was a knock at his door. "Come in." It was Yuna. She walked without assistance now, though she still moved carefully to protect her healing leg. She wore borrowed human clothes, simple and practical, and her silver-white hair had been cut shorter to remove the damaged parts. She looked almost like a different person than the broken warrior he had found on the station. "The tribunal," she said without greeting. "I heard about it. They're demanding that you appear before the Galactic Compact representatives. News travels fast. I should go with you." Teho shook his head. "That's not a good idea. The Krath will be there. They'll try to use your presence against me." "Exactly. That's why I should be there." Yuna stepped closer. "You stood for me when I could not stand for myself. Now I can stand. Let me stand with you." He looked at her for a long moment. She was still proud, still fierce, despite everything she had been through. Maybe because of everything she had been through. The defeat had not broken her. It had changed her, tempered her, like metal in a forge. "All right," he said finally. "But follow my lead. Don't let them provoke you." "I was a commander of the Third Fleet," Yuna replied with a trace of her old arrogance. "I know how to handle diplomats." The tribunal was held on Kavani Station, a neutral trading hub where all species could meet on equal ground. Teho arrived in his formal uniform, flanked by 2 aides from the coalition. Yuna walked beside him in simple clothes, her head held high. The chamber was circular, with seats rising in tiers around a central platform. Representatives from dozens of species filled those seats, their eyes fixed on the 2 figures who walked to the center. The Krath ambassador spoke first, repeating his accusations. Interference. Theft. Violation of traditions. His voice echoed through the chamber, harsh and angry. Then Teho was given his chance to respond. He stood calmly, meeting the eyes of those who watched him. "I invoked the Rite of Shielding," he said simply. I placed myself between Commander Yuna and those who would have taken her. By the laws of the Galactic Compact, laws that the Krath themselves helped write, my claim is valid. But why? Demanded the ambassador from the Norani, a small, curious species known for their love of intrigue. What do you gain from this? Nothing. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Nothing? The Norani pressed. You risked diplomatic incident for nothing? Tejo glanced at Yuna, then back at the assembly. I saw a soldier who had fought with courage and honor until she had nothing left. I saw an enemy preparing to enslave her, to break her, to use her as a trophy, and I had the power to stop it. He paused. Among my people, that is reason enough. Silence fell over the chamber. And what of the commander? Asked Ambassador Soren of the Valari. What do you intend to do with your claim? This was the moment. Every eye in the chamber was fixed on Tejo. She's not my claim, he said clearly. She's a soldier who deserved better than what was coming for her. I protected her until she could protect herself. And now... He looked at Yuna. She'll choose her own path. Yuna stepped forward. The chamber went utterly silent. I am Commander Yuna of the Valari Third Fleet, she said. Her voice was steady, carrying to every corner of the room. I was defeated in battle. I was claimed by a human, and I was treated with more dignity and respect than I have ever received from my own empire. Gasps and whispers broke out among the Valari delegates. Ambassador Soren's face went pale. The human asked nothing of me, Yuna continued. He demanded no service, no loyalty, no payment. He simply protected me until I was strong enough to stand again. And now, he offers me my freedom. She turned to face Tejo directly. Among my people, such a debt can never be repaid. But I can acknowledge it. I can honor it. She bowed her head, a gesture of profound respect among the Valari. You have my gratitude, Lieutenant Tejo, now and always. The chamber erupted in noise. Delegates shouted questions. Ambassadors demanded order. The Krath representatives' mandibles clicked so loudly they could be heard above the chaos, but Tejo barely noticed. He was looking at Yuna, and she was looking at him. And for a moment there was nothing else in the universe but the two of them and the strange bond that had formed between them. Later, when the tribunal had ended and the delegates had dispersed, they walked together through Kovani Station's corridors. That was quite a speech, Tejo said. I meant every word. I know. That's what made it powerful. They stopped at a viewing window. The station spun slowly, offering a panoramic view of the stars. What will you do now? Tejo asked. Yuna was quiet for a moment. I don't know. I can't go back to the Empire. Not after what I said in there. I've embarrassed them publicly. They'll see me as a traitor. I'm sorry. Don't be. I spoke the truth. Whatever comes next, at least I did that much. Tejo nodded slowly. You know, the Coalition is always looking for talented officers. People who understand both military tactics and alien cultures. People who aren't afraid to speak their minds. Yuna looked at him sharply. Are you offering me a position? I'm suggesting you consider it. When you're ready. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, slowly, a small smile crossed her face. Perhaps I will. Yuna stood in front of a mirror in her new quarters, adjusting the collar of her uniform. It was not the elegant silver of a Valari commander. It was the simple gray and blue of a United Earth Coalition liaison officer. The fabric felt different against her skin, lighter and more flexible than Valari military wear. She was still getting used to it. After the tribunal, everything had changed. The Valari Empire, as she had predicted, denounced her. Official statements called her a traitor who had abandoned her people and her duties. Her family name was stricken from the rolls of noble houses. If she ever returned to Valari space, she would be arrested. It should have hurt more than it did. But somewhere in the weeks and months after her rescue, Yuna had discovered something unexpected. She had discovered that her loyalty had always been to her soldiers, to the ideal of honorable service, not to the Empire itself. The Empire had taken everything from her, and yet it had given her nothing in return but cold duty and colder praise. The humans were different. She had accepted Taeho's suggestion. She had applied for a position with the Coalition's diplomatic corps, specifically working as a liaison for communications with the Valari Empire. She knew their language, their customs, their military thinking. She could help prevent misunderstandings, maybe even prevent future conflicts. The Coalition had accepted her eagerly. Humans, she had learned, valued expertise above prejudice. They didn't care that she was Valari. They only cared that she could do the job well, and she could, she did. Her door chimed, signaling a visitor. "Come in," she called. The door slid open, and Taeho walked in. He wore a different uniform now, too. In the months since the tribunal, he had been promoted. He was Admiral Taeho now, in charge of the Coalition's frontier fleet, the same fleet that patrolled the border between human space and the war-torn regions where Krath and Valari still fought. "You look good in that uniform," he said. "It took some adjusting." Yuna turned from the mirror. "I never imagined I would wear human colors. Life has a way of surprising us." They had seen each other regularly over the past months, but always in professional settings, meetings, briefings, diplomatic functions. He was an admiral now, and she was a liaison officer. Their positions demanded a certain distance, but they were alone now, and the distance felt smaller. "I received a message from Kovani Station," Yuna said. "The Valari have sent a new ambassador to the Galactic Compact. Her name is Soren. She was there at the tribunal. I remember her, cold woman, careful. She's requested a private meeting with me." Taeho's expression grew serious. "Is that safe? I don't know. But it's necessary. The war between the Valari and the Krath has entered a new phase. Both sides are exhausted. There are rumors of peace negotiations, and you want to be part of that? I want to help, if I can. I still care about my people, even if they've disowned me. And I believe." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I believe that what happened between us, what you did for me, could be a model. A different way of thinking about enemies and allies." Taeho was quiet for a moment. "That's ambitious. Is it wrong?" "No, it's not wrong." He moved closer to her. "Just be careful. Soren has her own agenda. All ambassadors do. I know. I used to be one of them. In a way." Yuna allowed herself a small smile. "But I've learned from the best. I've learned that sometimes strength means protecting instead of conquering. That mercy is not the same as weakness. You learned that yourself. I just showed you it was possible." "You did more than that." Yuna met his eyes directly. "You saved me. Not just my life, but my sense of who I am, who I could be. I don't know how to repay that. You don't have to repay it. That's the whole point. I know. But I want you to understand what it meant to me. What it still means." The air between them felt charged with something unspoken. They had danced around this for months, both aware of it, both uncertain what to do about it. He was a human admiral. She was a Valari exile. They came from different worlds in every possible sense. And yet, "I should go," Taeho said finally. "I have a fleet review in an hour." "Of course." He walked to the door, then stopped and turned back. "Yuna." "Yes? After your meeting with Soren, find me. Tell me how it went." "I will." He nodded and left, and Yuna was alone again with her thoughts. The meeting with Ambassador Soren took place on Kovani Station 2 days later. Yuna arrived in her Coalition uniform, a deliberate choice. She was no longer hiding who she had become. Soren waited in a private room, seated at a table with 2 cups of traditional Valari tea. She rose when Yuna entered. "Commander," she said. The title was odd, given that Yuna had been stripped of her rank. "Ambassador." They sat across from each other. Soren studied Yuna with calculating eyes. "You look well," Soren said. "The humans have treated you kindly." "They have. The Empire is surprised by your choices. Many expected you to fade into obscurity. Instead, you have become a visible figure. An example. An example of what? That is what we are trying to understand." Soren sipped her tea. "You spoke against the Empire at the tribunal. You praised the human who claimed you, and now you serve them willingly. I serve the ideal of peace. If that means serving alongside humans, I will do it." Soren was quiet for a moment. "The war with the Krath has cost us dearly. More than the Empire admits publicly. We are open to alternatives." Yuna felt a spark of hope. What kind of alternatives? The human approach interests certain factions within the Empire. This notion of protection without ownership, of strength through mercy, it is foreign to our thinking. But some believe it might be worth exploring. Some, not all. No, not all, but enough. The Empire would like to open formal diplomatic channels with the Coalition. Not alliance, not yet, but communication, understanding. And we would like you to be part of that process. Yuna understood what was being offered. A chance to rebuild bridges. A chance to help her people. Even from exile. It was more than she had dared to hope. "Why me?" she asked. "I'm a traitor, in the eyes of the Empire. You are a symbol," Soren replied, "of what can happen when traditional thinking breaks down. Some see that as shameful. Others see it as evolution." Yuna looked at the tea cooling in her cup. A year ago, she would have rejected this offer. She would have seen it as manipulation, as a trap, but she was not the same person she had been a year ago. "I'll need to discuss this with my superiors," she said carefully. "The Coalition will have opinions about formal diplomatic channels. Of course, take whatever time you need." They talked for another hour, working out preliminary details. When Yuna finally left the meeting, her mind was spinning with possibilities. She found Tejo that evening in his office aboard the Coalition's flagship. He was surrounded by reports and star charts, but he pushed them aside when she entered. "How did it go?" he asked. "Better than I expected." She told him everything. The offer, the implications, the chance to help build something new. When she finished, Tejo was smiling. "You're going to change the galaxy," he said. "Maybe, with help. You'll have it." And looking at him, at this strange human who had rewritten her fate with a single act of defiance, Yuna believed him. 3 years. It had taken 3 years of negotiations, arguments, setbacks, and small victories. 3 years of late nights and early mornings. 3 years of shuttle flights between stations and planets. Of meetings that lasted for hours and produced only centimeters of progress. But they had done it. Yuna stood on a stage in the great hall of Kovani Station, surrounded by more beings than she could count. Representatives from every major species in the known galaxy had come to witness this moment. Cameras broadcast the event to 100 worlds. History was being made, and everyone wanted to see it happen. Beside her stood Admiral Tejo, now one of the most famous humans in the galaxy. His face was calm, as it always was, but she could see the quiet satisfaction in his eyes. They had worked together for 3 years to reach this point. They had faced opposition from all sides. The Krath had tried to sabotage the negotiations. Factions within the Valari Empire had denounced the effort as surrender. Even some humans had questioned whether partnership with aliens was worth the trouble. But here they stood. The document before them was simple. A few pages of text in multiple languages, laying out the terms of the Terran-Valari Compact. It was not a full alliance. Not yet. It was a promise of mutual respect, mutual protection, and mutual growth, a foundation on which something greater could be built. High Chancellor Saren of the Valari Empire spoke first. He was an old man, one of the few who remembered a time before the war with the Krath. His voice was thin but steady. "The Valari Empire has walked a certain path for many centuries," he said. "Strength through conquest, order through control. We believed these were the only truths. We believed that power came only from dominance." He paused, his eyes finding Yuna in the crowd. "We were wrong." "Not entirely wrong. Perhaps. Strength still matters. But we have learned, through painful lessons and unexpected teachers, that there are other kinds of strength. The strength to protect without demanding service. The strength to offer mercy without expecting submission. the strength to see former enemies as potential friends. He turned to Tejo. The humans have shown us this. Not through words alone, but through actions. 3 years ago, a human officer stood in front of a fallen Valari commander and said no. He did not do this for gain. He did not do this for glory. He did it because it was right. Chancellor Saren picked up a pen. Today, the Valari Empire honors that action. Today, we sign a new kind of agreement, built on a new kind of trust. He signed the document and stepped back. Coalition President Mireille came forward next. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes, known for her intelligence and her stubbornness. She had fought for this compact in the coalition government, facing down those who wanted isolation and those who wanted war. Humanity is young among the stars, she said. We have much to learn from older species. But we also have something to offer, a different perspective. A belief that the universe does not have to be a place of endless conflict. She smiled slightly. We are not naive. We know that threats exist. We will defend ourselves when necessary. But we also believe in building bridges, not just walls. We believe that the hand extended in peace is stronger than the fist raised in war. She signed the document. Applause filled the hall. Delegates from other species watched with expressions ranging from skepticism to hope. The Krath ambassador was notably absent. But he was not needed. This was about the future, not the past. After the ceremony, there was a reception. Yuna moved through the crowd, accepting congratulations, answering questions, shaking hands, and appendages of beings she had never met. It was exhausting and exhilarating at the same time. She found Tejo standing by a window, looking out at the stars. Hiding? She asked, taking a moment. He glanced at her. It's a lot to take in. It is. She stood beside him, following his gaze. Do you think it will last? The compact? I don't know. Nothing lasts forever. But maybe it will last long enough to matter. Long enough to change how people think. You've already changed how I think. He turned to face her fully. Yuna, let me finish. She held up a hand. 3 years ago, I was dying on a burning station. Everything I believed had been proven false. I had no hope, no future, no reason to keep living. And then you appeared. She stepped closer. You didn't just save my life. You saved my soul. You showed me that everything I thought I knew about strength and weakness, about honor and shame, was incomplete. You taught me that true strength means standing for those who cannot stand for themselves. You taught yourself, Tejo said softly. I just gave you space to learn. You gave me more than that. Yuna reached out and took his hand. You gave me purpose. You gave me hope. You gave me. She hesitated. Everything. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The noise of the reception faded into the background. There was only the two of them, and the stars beyond the window. I've been thinking, Tejo said finally, about what comes next. The compact is signed. The work isn't over, but the hardest part is behind us. I'm not sure what my role should be going forward. What do you want it to be? I want to keep making a difference. But not alone. He looked into her eyes. I want a partner. Someone who understands what we're trying to build. Someone who believes in it as much as I do. Someone like me? Exactly like you. Yuna felt something warm bloom in her chest. It was not a feeling she was accustomed to. For so long, duty had been everything. Emotion was weakness. Attachment was dangerous. But the humans had taught her something different. They had taught her that emotion and strength could exist together. That attachment could make you fight harder, not weaker. That love, in all its forms, was not a flaw to be hidden but a gift to be treasured. I would like that, she said. Being your partner, Tejo smiled. It was a real smile, full and genuine, the kind she had rarely seen from him in 3 years of knowing him. Then let's do it together. All of it. They turned back to the window, standing side by side, hands still clasped. Behind them, the representatives of 100 species talked and laughed and began to imagine a new future. Before them, The stars stretched out in endless possibility. 3 years ago, Yuna had been a broken commander on a burning station, waiting for death or slavery. Now she was an ambassador for a new kind of thinking, a bridge between worlds, a symbol of what was possible when hatred gave way to understanding. And beside her stood the human who had made it possible. Not by conquering her, but by protecting her. Not by demanding her loyalty, but by earning it. The galaxy was vast and cold and full of species that saw strength only in dominance. The Krath still plotted revenge. Other powers still doubted humanity's motives. The future held challenges they could not yet imagine. But today, at least, something new had begun. A partnership built on protection instead of ownership. An alliance founded on respect instead of fear. A bond between two beings and two peoples that had started with a single act of defiance and grown into something that would echo through history. The stars burned on, as they always did. But for the first time in a long time, they seemed a little less cold. And Yuna, standing with Teho in the light of those distant suns, knew that whatever came next, she would not face it alone. None of them would. That was the human way. And now, it was hers as well.